Hi, thank you for joining me of my prophecy series of Daniel and Revelations Bible study. I have personally written and compiled these studies, and I'm excited to share them with you. So let's get started, because what's going to happen today is we're going to do lesson 4 called The Metal Man. And this is where we start diving into Bible prophecy. And we're going to start with the book of Daniel. And so there's a few things that we need to learn about the book of Daniel as we get started. Well, and I just want to make an important note that some people place the writing of the book of Daniel in 2nd century BC because there's a lot of historical precision and accuracy in the prophecies of Daniel. And so people think, well, how in the world could Daniel have known all of these details? There's no way, so someone after the fact must have written them. Well, we have a lot of discoveries that show that that is not the case, that it was written, the book of Daniel was written during the 6th century BC. And some of those discoveries are archaeological finds. There are several cylinders that have been unearthed that were not unearthed during the 2nd century. And some of the details of Daniel's experiences have been confirmed through these archaeological finds. And then also there's an interesting name called Belshazzar. He was the king of Babylon for a little while, or he may have been co-ruling with his father. In any case, that name was totally lost to history by 2nd century BC. So someone writing during 2nd century BC would not have knowledge of this person. In fact, some people doubted that he even existed until way later on, and I can't remember the exact time, but a cylinder was unearthed mentioning his name and his experience and the things that happened. That's explained in Daniel chapter 6. So that's really interesting. And then Daniel describes the Babylonian culture and religion and political structure and the things that happened when it comes to Babylonian political policy, details that someone would not have known during the 2nd century BC. It just shows that Daniel was really there. He really did experience these things. He was eyewitness. He recorded everything that happened during the 6th century BC. And so it's very interesting. And I have references on my Patreon page of some of these discoveries if you want to check them out. Another thing that I think is really interesting is that Daniel was written in both Hebrew and Aramaic, and that in the 6th century BC, there's a different style of Hebrew and a different style of Aramaic than there is in the 2nd century Hebrew and Aramaic. And so when we look at the Aramaic in particular, that's what is called the Imperial Aramaic that was written during the 6th century BC. And we have writings from Daniel found in the Dead Sea Scrolls in that style of writing, in Imperial Aramaic, which then again confirms that Daniel was written during the 6th century BC. That means that Daniel was written 500 years before the coming of Christ. And this fascinating book actually reveals some of the most incredible prophetic timelines in the Bible with absolute historical precision. And it affirms that God takes care of his word and preserves it down through history, so we can trust that. We can trust it and know that what he has spoken ahead of time, he will bring it to pass. Now let's look at the historical context of Daniel, because it's very interesting as we get into the book. It gives us foundation for understanding it. So it had been warned by the prophet of Jeremiah that if the nations of Israel and Judah did not repent from their spiritual idolatry, then naturally they would be overcome by the nations around them. In a sense, he would remove his protection from them because they weren't following him anyway, and then the natural course of that would be that they would be overcome by the nations around them, and that's exactly what happened. In and around 722 BC, the Assyrians conquered Israel and scattered. Some of them were taken captivity in different areas, and basically they were scattered among the nations, which fulfills a prophecy. And then in 608 BC, Judah was overthrown by Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, and thousands of people from the tribe of Judah was taken captivity. And this was prophesied again by the prophet of Jeremiah, that there would be 70 years of captivity, and this is the beginning of that time frame. So the Israelite, or not the Israelites, but the tribe of Judah was taken into captivity for 70 years, and it started in 605 BC and went all the way to 536 BC. And then later in 539 BC, Israel decides, or not, I keep saying Israel, but it's not Israel. Judah decides to rebel, and a lot of them side with Egypt and the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar. He comes and he squashes that rebellion. He besieges Jerusalem, whoever's left there, and that's the second time. And then finally, in and around 588 to 586 BC, Nebuchadnezzar finally destroys the city of Jerusalem and the temple, and you can read about that in 2 Chronicles 36, 15 through 21. And it's very interesting to note right here that now the historical focus of the Bible follows the tribe of Judah from here forward, because it is from this lineage that the promised Messiah would come. And so just take note of that. Now in 605, during the first invasion of Judah, Daniel and some of his contemporaries of the royal family were taken captive, and they were chosen for government service. And you can read about that in Daniel 1. And through a series of events, one including a prophetic dream in Daniel 2 that we're going to look at today, Daniel becomes very prominent in Babylon. Now I want to note that the first half of the book of Daniel, and that's Daniel chapter 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6, recount some of Daniel's experiences and some of his friends' experiences, specifically in Daniel 3, in their government services. And these experiences tested their faith. It reveals that God is faithful and upholds and sustains them, those who are willing to follow him, no matter what they have to go through. He is faithful to them. Now I'm not going to go through these chapters in particular, but they're really important to our time and to the end time believer. They're encouraging, they're uplifting, and they have some really valuable lessons that we as end time believers can glean from. So I really encourage you to go through those chapters. That's Daniel 1, 3, 4, 5, and Daniel 6. Now, Daniel was also God's prophetic voice in captivity in Babylon. And so the last half of the book, also including Daniel 2, but the last half of the book, God gave Daniel dreams and visions, and it shows that God is in control and that he is there guiding his people and intervening in the affairs of men. And so this prophetic portion of the book uniquely reveals a repeated snapshot of history, and we're going to see this again and again in the book of Daniel. And it shows the rise and fall of earth's empires all the way to the very end, to the time of Daniel, all the way to the very end. And the question is, what do we glean from these prophecies? What do they reveal, and why are they important to us? And we're going to find the answers to those questions as we continue our study.